What if I told you that one small brown penny, a coin you've probably walked past on the sidewalk 100 times, could actually be worth more than your retirement savings? You heard that right. Hidden in old jars, drawers, and forgotten collections all across America are Lincoln wheat pennies that could sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. In today's countdown, we're uncovering the top 5 most valuable Lincoln wheat pennies of all time. And believe me, these aren't just coins. They're ticking time bombs of wealth and history. Some were born from rare mistakes at the U.S. Mint. Others are so scarce they've only been seen a handful of times. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for. Because one of these jaw-dropping pennies might already be in your possession. This is where the real treasure hunt begins. And our first coin? It may look plain, but wait until you hear the story behind it. Let's dive in. Our first coin might not seem like much at first glance. It's brown, it's worn, it's got a few scratches. Honestly, it looks like the kind of penny most people would just toss into a tip jar without a second thought. But here's the twist. This little guy, the 1934 Lincoln wheat penny, might just be one of the biggest hidden jackpots in U.S. coin history. And if you've got one in your possession, you could be sitting on a gold mine. Now, let's take a closer look. On the front, we see Abraham Lincoln's classic side profile, a design that stood the test of time since 1909. Below him, the year, 1934. It was the middle of the Great Depression. Families were scraping to get by. Every cent counted, and yet somehow, this humble penny survived all those decades. Wars, recessions, inflation, and here it is, nearly 90 years later, still turning heads. Here's where it gets exciting. In circulated condition, like the one you're looking at now, a 1934 penny might fetch just a couple of bucks. $5, maybe $10 if someone's feeling generous. But here's the kicker. In uncirculated condition, especially those minted in Philadelphia without a mint mark, this coin's value can skyrocket. High-grade examples with that crisp copper shine still intact, they've been known to sell for over $10,000 at auction. And we haven't even touched the real money yet. See, 1934 is one of those years where errors made everything a whole lot more interesting. Take, for example, the extremely rare double-die obverse, a freak minting mistake that caused Lincoln's face, the words, "In God we trust," and the date to be doubled. These coins look like they were struck twice, and collectors go absolutely wild for them. One pristine 1934 doubled die, wheat penny shocked everyone when it sold for $125,000 in a private sale. But it gets crazier. There are whispers in the collector world of a handful. And we're talking maybe 3 or 4. 1934 pennies struck on the wrong planche altogether, meaning the coin was accidentally pressed on a dime or foreign metal disc. These are ghost-level rare, and if verified, could be worth $300,000 or more to the right buyer. Imagine finding one of those in an old coffee can in your garage. That's not just life-changing money, well, that's legacy-building wealth. And remember, many of these high-dollar sales started with someone just like you, noticing something strange about a coin that everyone else ignored. Maybe the lettering looked off, maybe the color seemed a little too silvery. Or maybe they just had a feeling. So here's your first lesson of the day. Never judge a penny by its cover. That old 1934 Lincoln wheat cent could be a beat-up piece of pocket change, or it could be a 6-figure slice of American history. Now that we've cracked open the vault with this shocking first coin, brace yourself, because the next one on our list, it's even rarer, and its story will send chills down your spine. Next up is a coin that's fooled millions, because at first glance, this 1940 Lincoln wheat penny looks downright ordinary. It's dark, a little rough around the edges. Most people wouldn't think twice about it. But here's the jaw-dropping truth. Some versions of this very penny have sold for more than $200,000, and if you've got the right one, well, you might want to sit down for what's coming next. Now, let's rewind the clock. The year was 1940. The world was teetering on the edge of war. America hadn't entered yet, but tensions were rising fast, and through all that chaos, the U.S. Mint quietly produced over 586 million Lincoln cents, mostly from the Philadelphia Mint, like this one you're looking at now. It was supposed to be a regular issue. Nothing fancy, nothing rare, But as history has taught us again and again, when it comes to coins, even the most common years can hide the rarest treasures. Look closely at this 1940 penny. You'll see Lincoln's profile worn down by years of handling, but still strong. The words, "In God We Trust," cling to the top rim. Liberty on the left and the date on the right. No mint mark? That tells us it came from Philadelphia. But here's the plot twist. Some of these coins weren't made the way they were supposed to be. One of the most talked about errors is the 1940 double die obverse. And yes, it's as dramatic as it sounds. Imagine a printing press misfiring, striking the coin twice, just slightly off. The result? Doubled letters in Liberty, in the motto, and sometimes even in Lincoln's eye. These aren't just cool-looking coins, they're extremely rare. One high-grade example shocked collectors when it sold at auction for a staggering $185,000. But it gets even more mysterious. There's also a version struck on the wrong planche. A 1940 penny accidentally minted on a silver dime blank. That means a coin that should have been brown and copper came out shiny, silver, and totally one of a kind. Just think, you pull a penny out of your pocket and it gleams like a dime? That's not just odd. That's a signal you're holding a possible six-figure anomaly. Only a handful of these are known to exist. One was graded AU 58 and brought in over $210,000. And if you're thinking that's where it ends, think again. Some 1940 wheat pennies were struck with repunched mint marks, or even came slightly off-center or clipped from the edge of the metal sheet. These smaller errors won't hit six figures on their own, but in uncirculated or red condition, they can absolutely rake in $5,000 to $15,000 from hungry collectors looking to complete rare sets. And here's the kicker. Most of these incredible finds were discovered not by experts, but by ordinary folks. People digging through old coffee cans, coin jars, or childhood collections long forgotten in an attic. They looked closer, felt something was off, and struck numismatic gold. So next time someone shrugs off a 1940 penny as just another old coin, you'll know better. Because history is hiding in plain sight, and this little cent? It could be a silent fortune just waiting to be rediscovered. Get ready, because if you thought that was wild, the next penny on our list? It broke the rules of minting itself, and its value might just break your mind. Folks wouldn't think twice about. A 1945 Lincoln wheat cent. Yep, just 1 cent. But hold on tight, because under the surface of this common coin lies a secret world of minting mistakes, war-era metals, and collector chaos. And the rarest versions of this 1945 penny? They've sold for as much as $300,000 to $5,000. That's not a typo. That's 1 cent turning into over $250,000. Now, let's set the stage. It's the final year of World War II. Factories are running day and night. Metal is being rationed, and the U.S. Mint is under pressure to keep the economy moving. So they keep it simple. Over 1 billion pennies are struck in 1945, mostly from copper alloy. That includes the one you're looking at now. Nothing unusual, right? Or so it seemed. Here's where things get very interesting. During the war, the U.S. had briefly switched to steel cents in 1943 to save copper for the military. But by 1945, they were back to using copper again, mostly from recycled shell casings from the battlefield. That alone makes the 1945 penny a coin literally made from the remains of war. But there's a twist. Not all 1945 pennies were created equal. A tiny handful were struck on leftover silver dime planches, blanks meant for Roosevelt dimes that somehow made their way onto the penny presses. These mistakes are almost invisible to the naked eye. The coins look just slightly brighter, slightly shinier, and weigh just a bit less than they should. If you blink, you'll miss it. But collectors? Oh, they don't blink. They pounce. One such 1945 off-metal error sold at auction for an unbelievable $305,500. Just imagine, a coin smaller than your fingernail turning into a six-figure payday, all because of a factory slip-up nearly 80 years ago. And there's more. Repunched mint marks are also known in this series, especially from the Denver and San Francisco mints. These errors are the result of the mint manually punching the letter onto the die more than once. slightly misaligned. The result? A visible doubling of the D or S, and that's enough to send collectors racing. Some of these mint mark varieties in high grade have fetched upwards of $10,000 to $15,000. And just when you think it's over, there are also stories of 1945 cents struck with doubling on the obverse, especially around Liberty or In God We Trust. Combine that with a pristine, uncirculated red finish, and now you're holding a coin that can leap into 20,000 to 50,000 territory. But let's talk about the emotional value here. Think of how many hands this penny passed through. From war widows buying bread to veterans returning home. It's not just money, it's living history. The 1945 penny was part of the greatest generation's every day. And now, 80 years later, it might be hiding in your sock drawer, waiting to make you a fortune. So before you toss that old change into a Coinstar, take one last look. Because what looks like a dull, worn penny could be a war-era gem worth hundreds of thousands. And we're just heating up. Because the next Lincoln wheat penny on this countdown? It's the holy grail of errors. And it might just break every rule you thought you knew about US coins. Now get ready. Because this next penny, it's hiding in plain sight under a cloak of deep, shadowy patina. A 1948 Lincoln wheat penny. 1 cent, aged and blackened with time. And yet, coins just like this have stunned collectors at auction, with some versions selling for more than $360,000. That's right, $360,000 for a coin most folks would overlook as dirty pocket change. But let's slow it down and reveal the real story behind this wartime-era relic. 1948 was a turning point in American history. The war was over, soldiers had returned home, and the economy was booming again. The U.S. Mint struck over 317 million pennies that year. That means this coin is not rare, at least not at first glance. But what makes the 1948 Lincoln cent so fascinating is what might be lurking under the surface. Because this year, it's a playground of mystery errors and freak minting accidents. Let's talk about that dark black toning for a second. Most collectors would pass it by, thinking it's just heavily circulated. But specialists know better. Certain 1948 pennies took on this color due to high sulfur environments, places like basements, old leather pouches, or proximity to coal, gunpowder, or even mercury. That dark toning? It's like an ancient fingerprint, and if it's original, untouched, and on a rare error coin, that darkness just might mean big money. Now here's the bombshell. A tiny handful of 1948 Lincoln cents were accidentally struck on the wrong planche. Foreign coin blanks, mostly from coins used in Latin America. These error coins are the ultimate treasure. They're slightly underweight, have a silvery or off-tone hue, and look off to the trained eye. But to the untrained, they look like just another dirty penny. One such off-metal 1948 penny was discovered and authenticated. It had been struck on a Peruvian 1 centavo blank. The weight was off. The sound was off. But the collector who spotted it? He hit the jackpot, selling it for over $360,000 at auction. Just imagine, a centavo from Peru accidentally mixed with American copper, and today it's worth more than a luxury home. And it doesn't stop there. There are double-die obverse errors known in 1948 cents, with visible doubling on Lincoln's profile or the lettering. A few of these, if sharply struck and graded at MS-66 or higher, have sold for $25,000 to $40,000. Add in full red luster and a near-perfect strike, and suddenly your dusty drawer coin becomes a six-figure sleeper. Even repunched mint marks, the little D or S stamped twice by accident, can send a 1948 penny's value soaring into the thousands. But perhaps the biggest shocker of all? Some 1948 cents were accidentally struck using 1947 dies, leading to a weird hybrid date impression. These transitional errors are almost unknown and highly sought after. Experts believe fewer than a dozen exist, and each one could be worth over $150,000. So, look again at that blackened penny in your hand. What if that deep color is hiding a once-in-a-lifetime mistake? What if you've been holding a fortune disguised in wear, rust, and grime? Because in the world of rare coins, it's not always the shiniest that shine the brightest. And coming up next, we're diving into a Lincoln cent that shook the entire coin community. A coin so rare, it was called a ghost strike. And when it surfaced, collectors lost their minds. Stick around. You do not want to miss this one. And finally, we've reached our last coin in this incredible countdown. And it's one that looks, well, rough. A beat-up, worn-out 1955 D Lincoln wheat penny. Most folks would toss this aside without a second thought. But this little coin, it holds one of the most mysterious and controversial chapters in American coin history. You're about to hear something that might just make you go dig through every penny jar in your house. The year is 1955. America is booming. Rock and roll is shaking up the airwaves, and the Lincoln cent has been going strong for over 45 years. But in that year, something happened at the Denver Mint, something unexplainable. Now, the 1955 Philadelphia penny is already famous for its double die, a dramatic error that caused Lincoln's face and the lettering to appear doubled, ghostly, and eerie. That coin is famous, and it can sell for over $275,000 in pristine, red condition. That's been documented. But Denver? That's where the real mystery begins. Because a handful of 1955 D Lincoln cents, only a few, were discovered with strange, shadow-like doubling and unusual marks. But here's the kicker. The Denver Mint never officially recorded such an error. That means these coins may have slipped through under the radar, through human error. Or something else. That's why any 1955 D penny, even in terrible shape, must be inspected. Your beat-up, scratched, dark-toned coin may be one of the rarest versions ever made. A variety so rare that no two experts can agree how many exist. One of these 1955-D shadow-doubling specimens was authenticated in a worn condition and still sold for nearly $48,000. That's right, a beat-up penny, just like the one you're holding, went for nearly 50 grand. And then there's the RPM, the repunched mint mark. This is a small, easy-to-miss detail where the Denver D was punched in more than once, slightly off-center. Now these coins are tough to spot, especially when the coin is heavily worn, but under magnification they become treasure maps. Find a clean example with a dramatic RPM, and you could be looking at $20,000 or more in top, uncirculated grade. But here's where the emotional punch lands. Because back in the 60s and 70s, these pennies were so often dismissed, handed over at candy stores, given away in allowance used in soda machines. Most of the ultra-rare 1955 D errors were spent, lost, forgotten. And now only a precious few survive, which makes your coin, yes, even in its bad condition, a potential key to unlocking one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in Lincoln cent history. So before you toss it, before you hand it over to the bank or drop it in a donation jar, take one last look. What appears to be junk could be a jackpot. And that brings us to the end of this wild ride through America's forgotten treasures. From the rarest minting errors to shocking six-figure sales, we've seen how something as small as a penny, your penny, can hide life-changing value. Which one surprised you the most? Was it the ghost strike, the off-metal planche, or maybe the old worn penny sitting quietly in your drawer right now? Don't forget, every coin tells a story. And sometimes that story is worth more than gold.